So the leaks for Boruto 2 Blue Vortex chapter 35 have just been released. And this chapter is already looking peak because what we're really seeing in this chapter is a setup chapter, but this is one of my favorite types of setup chapters. The ones where we get a lot of lore with a little bit of action here and there, and just a lot of things preparing us for what is to come. And the way that the build-up for this arc is coming to play, it is actually looking quite scary. Because this chapter starts off with the death of Mamushi being announced. We have Jura and Hidari who are reacting to all of this come to play. Jura interprets this by analyzing Mamushi and the fact that the lust that he showed towards Ada, that instinct, was an aspect of love. We have Jura that ends up discussing some of Mamushi's goals, like the fact that he wanted the Senju to prosper. But Jura views it in maybe of a different light. We will discuss this a little bit more deeper when the full translations end up coming out, but he does seem to be saying something quite interesting. But one thing that is made quite clear is the fact that Hidari and Jura almost share a different sort of bond, where it is discussed multiple times the fact that Jura had the possibility of saving Ryu and Mitsuri. Maybe not Mamushi, but he had the possibility of saving Ryu and Mitsuri. Same thing goes for Hidari, but they both chose not to do so, as they didn't really care. And this is where Hidari ends up asking Jura, who is one of the reasons why he ended up coming back to life, why he did so. Jura ends up responding that when he thinks about a world where Hidari is not there, it kind of makes him feel lonely. This is pretty scary because it ends up telling us that whatever happens in this arc, Jura is going to be involved in everything of it because he doesn't want Hidari to pass. Hidari is the one guy that he wants to stay alive when it comes to the Senju. They almost seem to share a special bond, and it's going to be quite interesting to see the official translations that end up being released for this chapter because I found it quite profound. But we continue on to see that Ada is the one who ends up looking at this conversation. She uses her Sharingan, and this time since Mamushi is not there, she can look at it in real time. And then we go back to Sarada. Sarada has just come out of the store where you are able to buy your glasses. It seems like she had to change her prescription. And this is where we see the sneak peek page. A lot of us thought it could have been Karin, maybe a new character, but no. Just like the probability of it being Boruto, that ended up being the case, as Boruto is the one who threw down the kunai so that Sarada could end up meeting him in a different location. So it was a similar thought that I had. I said it was a lower probability, as I did hope that Karin was the person revealed, but due to the simple fact that Sarada ended up turning her back, I knew that it wasn't any sort of flying Raijin. But the character is above Sarada, as we all guessed, and that character is Boruto. Now we end up going to Inigen, where he is having a conversation with Kashin Koji. In this conversation, it is revealed that Kashin Koji wants Inigen to be ready at all times, where Inigen is supposed to respond to him whenever he sees fit, as Inigen is the link towards everybody in the village, or that Kashin Koji can communicate with everybody using Inigen's transmission, since Ino didn't really want to work with Shikamaru, especially because of the fact that Boruto is this rogue ninja. So the only person that could be this hidden transmission that allows everybody to talk freely in a place where nothing is going to be recorded, that could only take place using Inigen's powers. And that's exactly what we are seeing right now. Inigen is asking various questions, but the last thing that Kashin Koji tells him is that he has to be ready at all times. And now we end up going to Kawaki and Amato, where they have a very intriguing conversation. Amato ends up letting us know about the new toes that he has worked on. These toes are similar to Kashin Koji in functionality, although they look a little bit different, as the other one seems to have a little bit of clothing, while this one is naked. But Amato lets us know that in this case, they are also still not living creatures, they are artificially made. But then we end up going back to the main gist of this conversation, which is to discuss Kawaki's stats and potential upgrades. We see that Kawaki's current stats is 85% attack and 15% defense. And Kawaki is quite agitated at that. The fact that, oh, it's not at 100%. But Amato is like, yo, don't get cocky, because if it wasn't for those 15% in defense, you would have been cooked. And this is what Kawaki has to come to understand, that the safeguard that Amato placed is what allowed him to stay alive. But Amato is not really here to argue with Kawaki. He's here to make him stronger. And that's exactly where he discussed. It seems like he ends up placing this toad, this smaller toad, around Kawaki's neck. And this toad allows Amato to freely be able to control Kawaki's stats, where he's going to be able to make it 100%. In this case, Kawaki is now able to fluctuate between his various stats. And this is going to be his own version of chakra control, where a shinobi would be the ones who is capable of doing so, where that person would put his chakra to focus on his defense and then place his chakra to focus on attacks. That is chakra control, controlling the amount of chakra you end up utilizing for various things. But Kawaki, due to the fact that he doesn't want to train, he is not going to go down that path. Instead, he's going to go through a different path, where he's going to be able to utilize 100% of his defensive capabilities, and when those defensive capabilities are no longer needed, then 100% is poured onto his attack, and vice versa. And Amato lets us know that at 100% defense, nobody is capable of one-shotting Kawaki. Even if he is off guard, nobody is able to kill him, basically. And we don't necessarily know how strong 100% Kawaki will be, but it probably is something a lot stronger than anything we have currently seen, due to the fact that we know that 85% was the most that we have seen with Kawaki concerning his powers. And this is what Amato is going to be pulling off. But this is why I think that Amato is like the devil. You can't get anything with Amato at 100%. Because Kawaki is not the one who's controlling this. The person who is controlling this is Amato. And yet again, just like Momoshiki has said before, Kawaki is consistently being used and almost seems like he's the palm of Amato at all times. Ever since Kawaki met up with Amato, Amato has been controlling Kawaki slowly and maturely, controlling how much of Ishiki's powers he slowly is able to extract, controlling Kawaki's stats, and now he's able to control how much power and defense Kawaki is able to use at one point. And I don't know if Kawaki even knows about the eye thing, about the fact that one of his eyes, Amato is able to see everything, but due to the fact that he is going to be in control of those parameters, it must mean that Kawaki knows that Amato is able to see everything through him. But yet, Kawaki basically has no choice but to agree, as it would basically negate him actually having to train for his chakra control and new strength. So he actually ends up agreeing. But that's not the last part of his bargain, as Amato says that, oh, you want me to do this to you? You see these cool abilities that I can get you, you know, you gotta do one thing for me. And the one part where Kawaki draws the line is Delta. But Amato is like, cool, we don't need you to do Delta right now. We'll get to that at a certain point. But actually what Amato wants Kawaki to deal with is something completely different. But before we get to that point, we end up going to Sarada, where Sarada is having a discussion with Boruto. And the gist of this discussion deals a little bit with the fact of Boruto's eyes. I hear that there's a couple of jokes about the fact that Boruto has one eye that's completely cooked, while Sarada is dealing with a couple eye issues. Sarada ends up apologizing a little bit for that. And we end up seeing the discussion of Code being met. And in that discussion, Boruto lets him know that Code is going to target her. And Code has already started to place claw marks all over the village, so he's easily going to be able to come to the village. This is something I thought could be a potential of happening in the sneak peek, but it's most likely going to happen in the chapters to come. But Boruto wants Sarada to let herself be abducted, so that they can end up going to the Shinju dimension and have this fight. So one thing that's gonna be pretty cool is that the fight between Hidari and Boruto is finally not going to happen in the Leaf Village. Are you not tired of having fights happen in the Leaf Village? or either in the outskirts of the leaf. I'm happy we're not having this fight be in the leaf at all. I was pretty cool with the sand fight. I really liked it, but it's looking like the next fight we're gonna be getting for Hidari, Soto, and Bob is looking like it's going to be in the Senju dimension. That's gonna be cool. I really hope to see a lot of background art when the fight ends up occurring. But for that to take place, Boruto ends up giving Sarada a couple pendulums, where when she gets to that location, she has to throw it so that Boruto is able to locate it and reach that point using his flying Raijin, or by simply flying there, which is going to be the point where Boruto versus Hidari takes place. But the one thing that is interesting is the way that Jura is talking. I got a lot of fear when it comes to this arc. But Boruto was telling Sarada that this is a dangerous mission. However, all they can do is to keep fighting and never give up. A pretty stoic mindset of not focusing on the things that could go wrong, the things that you can't necessarily control. But what you can control is the hope, your ambition, your attitude. And that's what Boruto was focusing on. And I really like that part. But we end up going to have like maybe a little intriguing conversation. We end up seeing that Hidari and Jura almost reading this little cat book. I don't know exactly what the translations are for this part, but we know that Ikimoto loves cats, so I know that this was a little part that he wanted to sprinkle in the fact that he likes cats, and have Hidari, who is looking at it quite intrigued, and Jura, who's also looking at it quite intrigued. I like this part. To be honest, like, Ryu was my favorite Senju, but this duo of Hidari and Jura, I think this is one of the best duos we have so far and we have personally seen. But this is where things take a very important twist. And one of the reasons why after this chapter, I could never trust Amato. I could never see Amato in the same light. Amato ends up giving this scroll to Inigen, and he's like, yo, give this to Kashin Koji. And Inigen is almost like caught off guard. How'd you know about Kashin Koji? How'd you know about Boruto's ally? But he ends up giving it to Kashin Koji. Kashin Koji ends up looking at this scroll. He looks at the scroll and boom, he senses something is kind of off. As he looks around, the one who appears is Kawaki. And instantly he is on guard trying to slash Kawaki. But then Kawaki simply ends up showing off one of the toads, and the toad ends up speaking as Amato, and he says dead end Kashin Koji, what is the shutdown code for Kashin Koji. And this is pretty much scary because Amato can't fight, but how is Amato always involved in these little intricacies, always finding a way to get some sort of power? There's something about Amato we don't know about, and this type of chapter, he is ruining everything, because this messing up with the only guy who's keeping up with the future, the only guy who's making it possible for all of this to happen, he is now down. Boruto's not getting any new updates. I don't know exactly what Amato's plan is, but that's where the chapter ends off. I really like this chapter. This is like from the spoilers right now. The translations are simply gonna make it better. I'm really intrigued. Like, this really pretty much woke me out of my sleep. It's pretty late right now, but yeah, this is where the chapter ends off right now. I'm too curious about what happened. I was a little bit down that we don't see no Kirin or anything. I thought it could potentially happen, but with the way this chapter ends, I don't care about that. The way this is going right now, this is pretty intriguing to me. So you guys let me know what you guys think about the league so far. I'm pretty curious to see how this arc will go. This will go down different. This is the arc, guys. We gotta pay attention to it. But it's been your boy Dynasty. Let me know your thoughts, comments, and concerns in the comment section below. And I'm out, bruh.